And welcome back to the Journey to Your Best Self podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian O'Neill, joined by my sister, clinical hypnotherapist, certified life coach, and yoga instructor, Tara O'Neill. We are here to guide people, mind, body, and spirit, wherever their best self lies. Today, we have a truly remarkable guest who embodies resilience, innovation, and an unstoppable spirit, hitting on all three of the cornerstones of your oneself. Dr. Rob Yonover. He's an inventor, a scientist, big wave surfer, dedicated caregiver, and there's so much more. Rob's inventions have appeared on Shark Tank, been used by SpaceX on manned missions, and have saved lives worldwide in extreme conditions. Despite these incredible accomplishments, Rob's personal journey is equally inspiring. For nearly 2 decades, he's been caring for his paralyzed wife while raising children, all while continuing to push the limits of science, adventure, and entrepreneurship. So, on today's episode, we'll dive into Rob's extraordinary life and journey, his approach to solving problems, and the mindset that keeps him motivated through all of life's challenges. And that is really where our audience is going to get a ton out of this, because the mindset, the motivation, the fortitude, the persistence is really something that every one of us out there can use to harness our creativity and continue on our journey and continue moving forward. So without any further ado, Dr. Rob, welcome aboard.
Thank you. That's a beautiful introduction. I appreciate that. It's great to be here. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And your accomplishments speak for themselves. So it sounded hyperbolic, but those are actually things that you've done, and hopefully we can touch on a lot of them. So
Thanks.
Can you start out with telling us where are you talking to us from?
Excuse me, where am I what? Taught all
Where
this?
where are you talking to us from?
Oh,
Because I
Florida.
think this is the first
Yes,
time.
absolutely. Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm from Honolulu, Hawaii. I'm sitting here right at the edge of the water. I'm basically barely human anymore. I'm kind of part fish, and that helps me with a lot of aspects of life, deep into nature. I came here to Hawaii 40 years ago to get my PhD working on volcanoes, and I'm a surfer, so it was a nice fit, and I never left. I started inventing while I was here, and I knew that in the academia world, you have to leave once you get a PhD. They don't want inbred PhDs teaching their inbred other PhDs. So I knew I wanted to stay, so I had to start a business. And one of the plaques in my family's home was, just say no to a real job. So I was brought up with an entrepreneurial, we didn't work for people. I mean, I did. My whole life I've worked for people here and there, but the goal was never to work for people. So I'm not working for people as we speak in Hawaii. So that's a good thing.
Wow, that is that's fascinating. Tara and I were just actually having a conversation about how it seems like most entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, a lot of times they start out, later on in life. It's
Right.
midlife. It's after they've gone through the rat race and the grind and done the 9 to 5. So who do you have to credit to leading you in that direction?
I grew up with it in my face. My father was so entrepreneurial, and he was one of the early guys that started a mail order company. He worked from his home. He had a second phone that used to ring around the house that also rang in his main office simultaneously, including one in his bathroom. Yeah, so he had 2 phones in his bathroom. We always aspired to that. And the book Hardcore Inventing, really, an originally working title was Inventing in Your Underwear, which was an homage to him. But we lost that title along the way. But he was the one, and my mom. My mom was creative, brilliant artist, ceramics, just anything. As kids, brother and sister, we were always thrown together doing projects, working with our hands, or they'd just kick us outside and ring a bell for dinner. I didn't really live in the house much unless we were doing projects or eating or sleeping. And that really set the tone. And just being out in nature was the other thing in parallel. And my parents really saw the value of traveling. So my father built a box that fit on top of the station wagon, wooden box, huge, looked like a triple coffin. And we shoved our luggage in there. The first time he built it, he made it too big. He built it in the house. It wouldn't fit out the door, which that speaks to the schmotech that I do. And that's one of the things you talk about, inventing and making mistakes. I'm king of mistakes. The shit I make looks horrible sometimes, but it's functional. So function over form. You've heard form over function. Anyway, we were traveled around the country every summer, and it was incredible. We saw everything, and it just led to a whole thirst to explore nature and all parts of the nature and the earth. And it was almost whoever travels the most wins in a weird way back then. This was a long time ago, but it's still kind of that way. If you have that. And then, and then all along the way, I've had different mentors that my professors, my undergrad professor, these people that saw that I was a little quirky, but I got A's. That was always my game as a kid and even in college. Is I had friends that were derelicts. Some went to jail, some OD'd, some became rock stars, but I always got A's. And my parents really preached the 3 R's, and I do too, and to my kids: respect, responsibility, and resourcefulness. And I learned at an early age. My brother used to get in trouble a lot. I'm like, I'm not into that. I got to show that I'm responsible. I don't need my parents saying, did you do your homework or this or that? I got straight A's, and that enabled me to hang out with all my derelict friends and do whatever I want. And it's been the same my whole life. So it's about doing well in school and learning. I mean, and I'm really, really competitive. I seem very mellow, and I am. So back in school, I just took that like another sport. School was a sport. I wanted to get an A, and I wanted to be down. And I came from a very competitive place in Miami where it was a sport. Who got the best grades and who did the best, and so that all kind of cumulatively, and then meeting professors along the way that kind of helped mold me. And then I worked with another inventor while I was finishing my PhD. He was a brilliant guy, invented the smoke in the cockpit technology. And I learned about as much of what not to do as what to do from him, because he took on the FAA and the airlines, and he would just be, I don't know, he wasn't very diplomatic, let's use that word, and it got him in trouble a little. So I learned about that. And in the business world, I always say I'm putting on my trade show persona. And in a trade show, everyone that walks by my booth is a friend, potential client, potential customer. So I don't care what their views are about anything. And I have to be magnanimous and open. And I like to be that in life. I mean, I like to meet new people, give them a chance. You can like them, they can like you, or vice versa, or not like you. But in that moment, respect, responsibility, resourcefulness, again, I respect that person. And I want to learn from that person. And that's the other thing. I never not become an elitist and say I can't learn. I can learn from everyone. And I have a PhD in science. I have all these achievements. Great, but the kid on the corner might say something to me, or when I'm buying a bean burrito at Taco Bell, I might bounce an idea off those guys, or I just learn from everyone. We're all, it's all a rich environment for learning. And it sounds corny, but I think it's
Yeah.
true.
No, that's a lot of stuff that I mean, that's the timeless kind of wisdom of our elders that I think is not really taken seriously sometimes and thrown away. There's disparage, like old, just the 3 R's is just a great, it's easy to remember, and it's also very applicable, and it is, like I said, timeless, right? Respect,
Yep.
responsibility, resourcefulness, because wherever you are, you're not a kid anymore, you're not a teenager anymore, but you're still looking back to that wisdom and then passing it on. So, ancient wisdom,
Exactly.
modern wellness is one of our mottos. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those things that your parents told you they're grounded and rooted in these cultural customs that are like always passed down. And
Exactly.
if you think we don't have to reinvent everything and remake how we're doing things, a lot of times we can learn from the past. But another thing that you had said that I was
Mm-hmm.
really keen on is that something Tara always talks about is you have to be, you can never think that you don't need mentors anymore, right? You can never think that you're above that. There's always someone out there. You can never be so full of yourself and
Right.
overconfident and egotistical that you don't need to look for someone else, even in a
Right.
field that's your
I mean,
specialty,
there's a
right?
time and a place. Okay, so you like when I did Shark Tank. That's not the time to. I don't want to learn from those guys then. I did, but I want to be confident and egotistical and brash and come out there. And when you're pitching, that's different. But yes, in life, you learn from everyone, and that's that's exactly the point. And I think that the value of learning from other people is so undervalued. And all those things that were passed down, the reason those things are passed down is because they survive time. They keep getting refined. So if they make it all the way down from hundreds or thousands of years, it's a mean they must have worked before. And even though the world's so different electronically, the people are still people. And that's, I'm talking to two people I've never met, and we're connecting. Now we're doing it bizarrely, over the etherware from New Jersey to Honolulu, but that's cool. But it doesn't matter. It's just like you walked in my backyard and I saw you and we're talking. So it's just a great opportunity. But it's also dangerous, of course, because I'm very anti-cell phones, by the way. So we can talk about that another time or later if you want. I'm very anti-tech. I mean, I love it. I embrace it and I create tech, but especially for the kids, I think that it's really bad because you just keep becoming a follower instead of a leader. That's also the other thing about the 3 R's is when you do the 3 R's, respect, responsibility, resourceless, you're building your character and you're making yourself a more interesting person as you're meeting other people. So there's a huge amount of respect that is built into that. And it's a tough one these days. And I have to navigate it because I'm getting older and everyone else is catching up. No, they're never going to catch up. But it's a bizarre world.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Rob, there's so much there. You really do embody the mind, body, spirit ethos that we have. So we're thrilled to have you on here. And there's already so many gems that you've tapped into, even if you don't realize it. I do want to start with this Shark Tank, right? So you could tell somebody that you've been on Oprah or Jimmy Kimmel or some show, but you say Shark Tank and it's like, oh my goodness, you were on Shark Tank? Like, it doesn't matter what you did, but there's this thing that's like, wow. So,
I know, it's pretty strange.
That's really cool accomplishment. Again, people don't even really care if it was great or not. But the thing is, it was actually great. And it saved a lot of people's lives and continues to.
Thank you.
Can you talk about, did you ever have this moment that you're on with Shark Tank? And while you're in your Shark Tank persona, which I agree that there's healthy personas and masks to have on, you definitely don't want to be like, teach me, Mr.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You want to be, okay, I got this. So did you have this moment of, whoa, I'm on Shark Tank right now? Did you have that little kid moment?
Beforehand, I try to get revved up. Just like talking to you guys, I'm getting prepared in my mind. I'm getting excited. And in there, it was like a mega dose of that. And they've got me in the little green room. I'm all mic'd up and I'm ready. And I always treat it like sports. Again, back to surfing big waves, or when I used to play basketball, you got to get psyched up, basically. And I seem very casual, but I practice things endlessly. I don't like to practice my actual speech, but I practice what I'm going to say, not how I'm going to say it necessarily. And that may not be good for a lot of people, but I think it's just more authentic and it just comes out better. And in fact, they made me memorize something for my first pitch for the producers. And they said, oh, that was good. We loved your question and answers, but we loved, we didn't like your speech. I go, that's because you guys made me memorize it. And my producer said, you don't have to do that. I go, okay. So they let me go. They let me untethered, but I strategized and I'm like, okay, I'm walking down this aisle. They got the cameras, where the shark, the tanks, and they're like a million cameras, all these people. And I'm just thinking, just like all the time, I always tell people, no one knows your stuff better than you. So that's the baseline mentality. No one knows about sea rescue streamers like me, number one. Number two, I've done way more in the adventure type world than them, and I've done more in the personal world. So you can't touch me. You can go after me like they do, and they try to make, they make fun of people, and it's kind of it's an edgy show. You're putting it out there because they go after you, and it's me against 5, and it's like in your face, and it's real. It's not tape. It's not like they don't say, hey, that sounded good, say that again. It's nothing like that. You just go in there. So, and then the thing, I had a couple kicks in my mind about, okay, I got to get back at Mr. Wonderful, because he's always giving people grief. And I know it's part of the show, but it pisses me off because I'm a pro innovator, inventor person, and he just crushes people sometimes. So I knew he was short, and I knew he was bald. So I said, okay. They said to me, "What do you want to demo your product?" I go, "Yeah." And they go, "Can you use Damon?" I go, "No, I'd rather use Mr. Wonderful, because I'm also going to make a joke, and I don't want to be racist in any way." And I knew that when I said, and he agreed to it. He didn't know. They don't know me at all either. So when I got out there, I go, "Hey, can you help me?" I asked him, "Can you help me unfurl the streamer?" And I knew by doing that, he would stand next to me and I would look down on him, which I thought that was good for all the people. I wanted to, he's not that big. I'm bigger than him, right? For all the people he put down. And I knew they'd make a joke about him when they started unfurling the streamer. And they did. They said, "Keep going, get lost." And then later, I said, "Your head looks like the size of a coconut." Your head, they said, "You can't be seen in the water because your head's the size of a coconut." And I didn't want to say that for Damon because he's a black guy and, coconut, it wasn't good. But I figured Mr. Wonderful, it was funnier. But it was, I never really, except when they started going out, I'm like, oh, I knew then that this was not going the way I wanted it to go, but it's okay. And I just realized it doesn't matter. I'm presenting myself well. They're learning a lot. They're respecting me. And even using the Dr. Rob, they continue. I put that as my, "What do you want me to call you?" That, because I want you to respect me for having a PhD in science. And they did. And I was older than all of them, except maybe Mark Cuban and I are the same age. And that was good too. So I was kind of like an elder. So that helped me confidence wise. I didn't really break in that I got too nervous and think about it. But I was walking out there, I'm going, okay, this is 9 million people. And since that, they've aired it 80 times on CNBC already. So, and they keep airing it.
Wow.
But now I look like this, and that was like 6 years ago, and I was in the hair and makeup trailer. So, I look better then. But no.
Who favorite shark?
Well, Mark Cuban for sure. The guy was tracking with me the whole time. The other ones were lost. I mean, it was like, I speak to kids on all levels. Kindergarten is my favorite. I like the young kids because their minds are green and wide open. And I talk to college kids. I talk to entrepreneurs. I'm part of the universities here, outreach stuff. And they were tracking like the elementary kid. They couldn't really get it, which really was a cool setup for me, because then I got to, Damon fell right into that. And he goes, "I just can't see the guy." I go, "That's the whole point." I mean, so it was cool. It was just like I was, conducting a lecture at a university or an elementary school, whatever. But Mark Cuban was tracking, and they genuinely were trying to make good points and give me advice as well as not invest. And it's also a TV show, so I could see them. And you remember, it's me and 5 people looking at me, and I know they're all trying to say something smart. And I'm like, and then you could see them kind of generating their smart statement or question. And then at the end, I could see how after the first person went out, I'm like, okay, they're all going to go out, and they're all going to make up a reason why. And it was really fascinating, because at that point, my mind was working so fast. I could just see them before they started talking. I go, okay, you're going out. Let me hear how you're going to say you're going out, so you sound smart and funny or whatever. But it was great. And Mark Cuban was, it was a little weird because, I love women. I'm not really into guys, and that's cool if you are. But he kind of had a crush on me a little, so that was kind of weird. He was kind of sparkly and kind of flirting with me, and it was funny. It was fine, and it was. That's why I winked on the way out, which was really funny. And him and Mr. Wonderful caught that, and they were like shocked. If you watch it, you can kind of see it at the end, because he goes, something like, "Oh, I'm so happy. I would wish I had more time to pick your brain, science. You're the greatest." I go, "Give me a call," and I kind of winked at him. It was funny, but they're cool. They were good people.
Things that are in the kind of scientific, kind of innovative realm, or you would think that him and Robert would probably be like most into,
they were.
The makeup of the show.
And I think they might get bored a little, and I think that I said something in the post interview and it didn't make the cut. And I knew when I said it, and I probably shouldn't have said it, but the camera crew loved it. And they just said, "Are you frustrating? Are you disappointed?" And they said,
"Yeah."
I said, "Yeah, I'm disappointed." This was after I didn't get a deal. They take you to this other room for that little reaction filming. And I said, Yeah, I'm disappointed that they'd rather invest in cupcakes than saving lives. I thought it was a great line, and the crew stopped filming and they all broke out in laughter. But I'm like, you can't put that on because that's an indictment of the whole show. And I'm kind of a fish out of water. I'm part of a Shark Tank group. We have a little Facebook private club that we all get together, have like reunions of all the people that have been on the show, and it's great. We share knowledge. I learned a ton from these people. It's great, great people. But sometimes I catch myself in there going, "What am I doing in here?" I mean, and it's cool because I like inventing. I have some weird inventions that are good Shark Tank type products too, but on paper, and I tell this to people a lot, it's like, I gotta have it. I have an image. Some people only know me in a suit and tie, buttoned up, so I can't be flirting with cupcakes and wacky stuff all the time. So there's that. But it was a cool experience, and I think, again, what I said before, that I practice a lot. I'm very prepared. I've been doing presentations for years in the academic world and the science world, so it didn't faze me that much speaking in front of people. But that I could
Yeah, that
see.
kind of like leads me into my net where I wanted to go next was
Okay.
You've definitely a risk. You're definitely not a risk adverse guy, right? So you definitely are willing to put yourself out there, whether it's physically.
Right.
Talking in front of people is kind of an emotional challenge, right? For sure, for
Absolutely.
a lot of people. So how do you manage that kind of fear, doubt, or the expectations when you're going to be given a talk,
Mm-hmm.
the judgment, or what's going? Is it
Mm-hmm.
just clearing your head out before
Right.
you get out there? Is it knowing the material? What are some of
Okay.
your preparation techniques?
Excellent question. I'm into measured risk. So something's risky, but I do everything I can to measure it or reduce the real risk. So surfing big waves, I train. I paddle 2 miles a day, and then like 10 years ago, I got stuck inside on 20 foot waves in a row were hitting me, and I'm stuck. And I have a 20-foot leash and a 12-foot pointy board, and I could dive down and come up and get a breath of air before the next wave comes. And I almost drowned. And then I got to the beach. I'm like, okay. So what I do is, first of all, measured risk, and then also evaluate. As a scientist, I'm always evaluating everything. It's painful for the people around me because everything's like a problem. Can I solve it? How can I modify it? How can I improve it? So the surfing example was, okay, if I have to duck dive 20 times underwater in a row, I'm going to start doing that every day. So now I do 50 of those. I have a paddleboard. I paddle 2 miles for lunch, and in the middle, I jump off with a string and I do 50 of those one breath free dives to simulate getting tumbled. And now, when I get drilled on the North Shore and that's happening, I kind of laugh to myself, like, oh, I know what to do here. Same thing with Shark Tank or anything. The risk, it's training really, and that's preparation, but it's also smart training, knowing you got to identify. And I've done enough talks and I know what goes wrong. So I have like, little mental notes, mental places I can go if I'm in a jam. So when I practice, that's what I do. It's all about slides for me. The irony is I'm a terrible public speaker in regard to personal. Like, don't give me the mic at a wedding. I'm nervous. I don't want to talk bullshit. I like to talk about my stuff because I know it and I study it and I work it, and then everything is a slideshow to me. So it's hard for me to give a talk without slides. So if I do, I memorize slides in my head, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to say this, then this next slide is this and this and this. And then I also have, when I talk to students, I have physical things I can show them. So if something starts bogging down and going slow, I go to something I know they'll love, like my first invention when I was 5. My parents gave me a little motor, and I taped a straw to it. So it spun a tiny straw, and I shoved it up my nose, and it was the first electric nose picker. And I was 5 years old, and my parents go, "Oh, you're whacked," but they knew I was a little different then. But it was a good idea, and it worked. So and it was funny. Humor is a good thing too to get you through all these things. So you have to learn to
Mm-hmm.
laugh at yourself, and be not too arrogant to know someone can always get you down. So I really value people that kind of put me down all the time in a friendly way, not too hard. But I think that's also part of training, right? I mean, if you've never been put down your whole life, then you go out and speak in front of 100 people and someone asks a really hard question, you can get flustered. Whereas if I mean, I grew up in Miami, we used to sit out at night and make fun of each other all night. I mean, we had cut down fights. We were hard. It was hard. So people now have much more respect, usually, especially in person. Not online, people can hide behind things. So I think it's really training. And I know, yet my cousin used to tell me that he went to Yale, and we always thought, oh, he's so smart. But he told me, he goes, no, I grew a beard and I wore a rugby shirt. I played rugby and I would sneak away to study because I didn't want anyone to know I was studying. I wanted them to think it comes easy to me. And I really took a lot from that. And that's kind of what I did. I figured out in college, dinner time is a waste of time in college. So from 4 to 7 every night, 4 to 8, that was my window. I would go to the library and study. People say, man, you never miss a party. I go, yeah, no, why would I miss a party? Why would I miss a surf trip? Why would I miss anything fun? I miss dinner. Don't ask, I'm not going to dinner with you in college. So it wasn't for years later that I realized that I was studying in this room that had glass partitions. I'm like, this is great. No one's ever here. Till one day someone lit up a cigarette. I go, oh man, I'm in the smoking section. That's how long ago it was. Smoking section in a library. But even then, I was training. Wow. I was training back then. I'm training now, and I think if you stop training, and first of all, training needs to be fun. That's the real problem. Training to most people is torture. When I go out and paddle a couple miles and free dive and swim, that's like only a notch below surfing in terms of fun. And you got to find something like that, mentally and physically, that help you enjoy the outdoors. Let your mind breathe. And there's something about repetitive stuff like paddling, cycling, running, walking. That frees your mind up to be clearer because your body's saying, okay, one foot in front of the other, one arm in front of the other. And it's just, and then in nature, then you have no distractions. And that's my favorite, is just to be really out there. So my body's working. My mind is almost blank. I like a blank slate. It's the way I do my chores or things I have to do. I don't want an inbox full of stuff. If you send me something, I'm going to do it and get rid of it. I want a clean whiteboard in my head so I can think of wild things.
Wow, that's like a pretty amazing, like, where it makes you want to get a surfboard and get out there. Like,
absolutely.
You just kind of really talked about the melding of the mind, body, spirit there when you're on a wave or you're headed out there. You get in kind of, like you said, that repetition, and it's almost like it's a trance like state, right? When you get out there, and then you get the clarity, and you're healthy because you're working your muscles, and everything is like coming together.
Right.
And it's just like the way you set it up is really nice. Tara, go ahead.
Go on.
Yeah, no, so I was gonna say, I mean, that's really actually the creativity part that I think sometimes we almost try to force, right? It's like, well, I have to think more. I have to try harder. I got to study. I got to come up with something. But could you say that it's in those moments that you have the blank slate, when you're out surfing, when you're doing nothing, that you may even get those innovations that come to you, or those little aha moments?
Absolutely. And my father used to say to me, he goes, yeah, because I would tell him my best ideas come to me when I'm either surfing, paddling, or fishing way offshore. It always has to do with water. He goes, me too. When I'm in the shower, I come up with the best ideas. And I mean, I don't know if it's related, but the brain, they say if they look at your waves or your heartbeat, it's all regular, right? But brain waves, if they go regular, you die. So it's so random. It's like fireworks going off. So I think to get those fireworks to go off, everything else has to be calm and relaxed and open. And I think it is hard to create, but along those same lines, as advice to aspiring innovators, inventors, or just people, is one of my big lines was always, and still is, don't quit your day job. See, that's another, you can't be worried, or like you just said, you can't pressure yourself to create. And having financial pressures on making this invention work, that's too much. And I've had that. just not by choice because of the way my life went with caring for my wife that was paralyzed with little kids, all that. I had to make money from not just the streamer, but other inventions. So I had that, but I never but I had it. I still had I had royalty money coming from the streamers. I had day jobs. So, but for the regular person, if you look at all the time in a day or week, if you put your phone down, you still have 8 hours a day, but just besides 8 hours of working and 8 hours of sleeping. So there's plenty of time every day to do these things. And then again, if you can get a Zen physical, mental thing like paddling, walking, running, surfing, and that also is coupled with eating right. The fuel, you need the fuel to be able to train, to open your mind, to do the good things. So that's when it hits you out of the blue, you get the ideas. And I also like to look at problems and materials. So I used to wander through Home Depot or Walmart or Costco, especially Home Depot and Walmart and hardware stores, and look at stuff. It's almost like it's planting the seed. Yes, there's a piece of plastic that looks like this. There's a piece of metal that looks like this. Then months or weeks or days later, I encounter a problem. I go, oh, if I had that piece of plastic, I'll go buy that. And they'll go, what are you doing? What do you need that for? I go, I'm making something with it. I'm going to cut it up and make something out of it. But I'm storing all this knowledge, background, so I can, when I'm free form thinking, I can start playing with things and materials. So it's all kind of a bouillabaisse of all that stuff. It's all, and I, to me, it's also to invent, to be fun invention. I have stupid inventions like the electric nose picker, and I have another very practical one, which is I use a tiny paint roller to get sunscreen on my back because I can't reach my back. And my friend said, can I put, I don't have a beautiful woman or friend to put sunscreen on me when I'm alone. I'm usually alone. I choose to be alone. And my friend said, I'll put it on. He goes, yeah, can you put it on me? And he had this gnarly, hairy back. I'm like, nah, I got to invent something. So I have to put sunscreen on another guy. I'm partially homophobic, but not really. And he's hairy back. And I'm like, so then I start using a paint roller and people used to be honking at me on the side of the road. And I don't care. It's funny. And I have kneebrellas. These are another one. These are stupid inventions, but they solve a problem. And you start getting your mind to think about solving problems. And the problem may not be just functional. It may be a mental problem or a social problem. A problem's a problem. Solve the problem. And I like to do flash problem solving in my mind. Like, okay, because I read a lot about survival stories because I'm in the survival business. And the number one tool in any survival is your brain. So I'm like, okay, I got an hour to solve this problem. Because you read about these guys that are on a life raft with a piece of rubber and a piece of metal and they figure out a spear gun or whatever. It's amazing. So like the one I was going to say is my knees were getting burned by the sun when I drive to the North Shore. So it's just a basic problem, but I don't want to wear pants. So I invented kneebrellas, I call them. And all they are white terry cloth, bigger than washcloths, but slightly bigger. I put them on my knees. And because they're white, the albedo, it reflects the sun, and they're open, so the coolness cools my knees from the air. So again, a stupid invention, and I'm not going to do anything with it, but it gave me great satisfaction to solve a problem, my problem. I mean, that's what I try to invent shit for me first, and then see if everyone else wants it. Is there a market for it? Either way, it's a win because I'm exercising my mind, inventing, and I'm solving one of my own problems. So.
Awesome.
That's amazing. That's fabulous. I mean, I'm still incubating on the paint roller and the lotion because I think that's genius. That's really genius, right? Even with those sprays, they're not really getting on there.
No, and my daughter sprays it here and it gets all over. I go, you got to go in the backyard and spray that stuff. You can't spray that in the house because it's windy here in Hawaii. And the idea, again, when I first thought of it, it was going to be commercial. And a lot of this stuff will happen. I'll be dead, but this will happen. They'll have a suntan bottle that'll have a telescoping band, and it used to just be the first paint roller wasn't a roller. It was just like a back scratcher with a pad on it. Then I'm like, why not use a roller? But every every sunscreen applicator, every sunscreen bottle should have one, so you can put it on your back. If you go to a dermatologist, that's the first thing they dug out of me was right in the middle of my back. They're going to get sunscreen there. I go, I can't reach. right? I can't reach the middle of my
Wow.
back.
Yeah,
So
true.
it's really, it's actually it's a big problem, but a
So
stupid solution.
what do you tell, you like you said, you get the clearance, you get the clarity, and then you're just firing away like, fireworks.
Right.
You've come up with so many different things over the years. Um, but
Thanks.
you're fortunate, one way or the other, hard work and everything, but you just have kind of this gift. What
Oh,
do you tell
thanks.
people um that are stuck, that need the
Okay.
fire lit, that
I think,
need the inspiration, and they know they want to do something, but
right.
they don't know how to get
Okay.
started?
Well, first of all, you hear about my successes, and there's 80% of my ideas are failures. And I write them down. First of all, anyone doing a project, a business, anything, have a folder, write notes, and even in the inventing world to document when you thought of it. So I'm always writing notes to myself. And then I wake up the next day or a week and I go, that was stupid, and throw it away. But that's a way to get unstuck, is like to close that chapter. If you get stuck on a problem, go to something else. I love, and what I was doing in the midst of my caregiving, inventing, struggling financially life was I was just going problem to problem to problem. Because when I got back to the other problem, I had a whole new set of experiences and a new perspective. I think people get stuck because they're just too focused, believe it or not, on that one thing. Get away from it. That's why for me, paddling, surfing, fishing, getting away is one way, but also you have a day job or you have kids or you have a spouse, you have all these issues, and you just got to leave it and then come back to it with a fresh set of eyes, fresh perspective. And some things you have to leave for years. Some of my inventions I've left for a year or two. For the streamer, I never left. I mean, I've left it for months at a time in the early days, but I knew this was a winner for me, for saving other people. I want one. I know the military will want one. So I knew it was a good idea, but I had to figure out how to make it work. And sometimes you're ahead of the curve or you're behind the curve. So I'm always looking for materials that don't exist. That's why I'm wandering through Home Depot looking at stuff. But then it catches up. Then you see something that might be appropriate to bring into that one problem you have. And that's not just, you can expand that from a material to just a social thing. Oh, this new friend said this or they said that. Maybe I could try that approach to what they're doing in the finance or teaching or whatever world and bring it into the problem I'm having. So it's really almost, it's like roulette, but it's also kind of scattered. I mean, I want my brain to be fast. And the other way to look at it is micro, macro. So a lot of people talked about this. I learned it later. When you attack a problem, you don't look at it small first. You look at it big, big, big. Then you focus down to it. So a lot of people do it the wrong way. They look right at the problem. You got to look at the macro solutions, everything that's involved, and then come down, then focus in. And that's by revolving to other problems and also getting deep in nature, I'm doing macro, micro all the time because I'm getting into the macro world, problem-wise or nature-wise, and then coming back to micro. What is the problem at my desk? What's in front of me right now? So that's kind of how I try to do it.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's
Thank
amazing.
You.
There's a practice. It's funny because we were speaking earlier about hypnosis. You actually do a lot of the you could be a hypnotherapist. You
Really?
do a lot of this already on yourself. Yeah. Even when you were speaking about being in the ocean or being in the water, when your brainwave states move into that from beta over concentrating to the alpha or the theta state, that's where those sparks, they're not actually words that are maybe talking to you directly, but that's where the sparks start firing.
That makes sense.
Was beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, it's free association too. I mean, and when you're out there, and even like, you could be with people too. I like to be in nature. I'm just looking at birds or fish or turtles or the sky or the wind. I'm worried, tracking what I'm doing with my body, but you just start losing all of it and you're just out there and things flash. It's like dreaming too, right? But it's dreaming while you're awake and you can come back to it. It's a safe trance. I guess it is like hypnosis. I mean, I put myself into a trance. For better or worse. I would say
that's right. That's
but you also
the definition of a trance.
You have to be an inventor like me. You got to be creative and weird and open to being a little ridiculed. I mean, that's the truth. And again, back to my original experiences, the people I met and wanted to hang out with in early life were weird and out there and a little dangerous. And I'm like, I got to have a tether. I got to be tethered to something that's grounded. And that's where by doing well in school and even getting all these degrees and getting all, it's let me get less and less tethered and less, because I can always throw down and say, I have a PhD in science, so I'm not that big of an idiot, even though I sound like an idiot, and I do a lot. But I had early professors say, I don't know what's wrong with you, and because I ask really dumb questions all the time, and I used to be really embarrassed by that. And now when I give talks, I welcome the dumber the question, the better, because that just shows people outside the box. They're asking something that's made them think.
Yeah, two challenges that makes me think of envy. Right? There can be a lot of envy, right? When you're competing against other people.
Sure.
You see them be successful. I think we're up to 14, 15 seasons, or 13, 14, 15 seasons of Shark Tank, right? You're watching episodes. You say, how did this guy get a deal? Are you serious?
I know.
Who's buying that? That thing's ridiculous. You have someone that's making someone else that, it's the paintbrush suntan lotion applier. How is that going to get a deal with Home Depot? That's ridiculous. But envy can be really toxic, and it can be consuming, and it can stunt like your creativity and growth. How do you avoid that and stay positive, feel good for other people's successes?
That's a great question. First of all, I acknowledge it, but I privately, it's juice for me. Envy is power, man. It's like, okay, you think you're badass at that? I'll show you. I don't want to come out that, but that's how I think. When I used to play basketball or I surf, you can do something great, but okay, my turn. Or learn from how that person take something from. Why did they do that? They may not have the best idea, but I see how they connected with the sharks. I see how they packaged it. I see, you just learn from them, and then you just go back to your drawing board. And it's just competitive juice for me. And I've always liked, and even when I played basketball, I was a pretty good player, and I wouldn't even play hard unless I was with guys that were better than me. It's like, that's when you learn. You got to learn, you can, I don't want to be the king at a table of tiny people. I want to be the king among kings or queens. I don't want, so it's always, envy is a good thing. I mean, it is dangerous though, because you start getting stuck on it. Woe is me. How come it's not me? Well, are you doing the work? Are you training? Are you really doing the work? This person you see that did some wacky thing on Shark Tank, they most probably did the work. It may be wacky, and it's just maybe out there, but you're not seeing the amount of work that went into it. And that's why when I go to these Shark Tank reunions and meet all these people, even though they're doing cupcakes and all these things, some of them, that it's just wacky or, consumer products, and that's fine. But I respect where they brought it. And Shark Tank, those are mature ideas. You can't just go on that show with an idea. You have to have sales. So it's way beyond just a regular. I'm used to more getting pitched, hey, I got this great idea. Why don't you make it bring it to market, and we'll split the money. I'm like, I don't have enough time for my ideas. I'm not going to work for you. And the other thing is, you have to have the passion about your own idea, right? I have no passion. And envy works that way too. I don't really envy people, because usually they're not doing something I ever want to do specifically. They might be, or overall, globally. Yes, they might be, Bill Gates or Elon Musk. I don't want to be that guy. I know people like that. They're stressed out of their minds. I got a guy that has 7 people that works in his house. I don't want to pay attention that much. I want to get to the blank slate. So it's like, my buddies and I used to joke about it years ago when we had kids. It's like, the goal is to not have to pay attention so much. I mean, these guys not only have to pay attention, the stress level, and I don't want to manage people. One of my other big sayings in life is, I don't want to be an employee, and I don't want to have an employee. If you can be that, you've really succeeded, in my book of never just say no to real jobs. Because I don't want to manage people. People always let me down in that setup. That's why I don't want to be in the position for someone letting me down. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. If we interact, great. Two ships in the night. But I don't want to be babysitting you, especially now. I don't know how anyone runs a company with smartphones and social media at people's hands. I just don't know how you do it without being a total idiot and saying, banning them at the door. My daughter used to help me do things, and I say, I'll give you 5 minutes, like a cigarette break. I'll give you 5 minutes, an hour. You can go play on that thing. But I can play on it because I'm hurting myself only.
Right. No, I mean that's such a great way to put it in terms of envy and comparisonitis and getting in our own head, and made me think of, even for you, people might say, oh, well, this guy, he just gets to think of cool shit all day long and surf, right? Can you talk about your adversity, and that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, so to speak, and no one should want anyone else's life per se. You got to love your own.
Yes, for sure. And my life's been crazy, but again, people see the sausage, they see the sausage, they don't see how it's made. And I outwork everyone. I mean, that's the other thing. But my persona, people don't think I have a job. And when I used to surf out this one break, people thought I was a drug dealer because they saw me surfing at 11 o'clock every day. I go, no, that's because I work from 6 to 11 and then from 2 till 10 at night. They don't understand. So there's that. So there's the envy the other way,
Sure.
But they don't really know. And I just, it's hard for me to, it's weird. I think I have a different mindset than a lot of people because I'm really self-disciplined. And I think that's so hard for people because I talk about not having a job and being an entrepreneur, but to be disciplined and be driven without someone telling you have to. And Hawaii is a hard place. Look, it's beautiful out every day. There's waves, there's beautiful ocean. How do you put the time in? And then for my personal situation, my wife and I, we had it made, beautiful kids. And then she started limping and it turned into MS and she's in a wheelchair for 19 years. And all of a sudden, it's a whole different world, raising little kids and becoming the arms and legs of your partner. But the same thing happened to me in that, which is, okay, assholes, this is what I get. I'll show you. I'm going to do this too. I'm going to compete. I'm going to learn. I'm going to take this on, and I'm going to get good at it. So, I mean, I became good as a caregiver, and from a male perspective, and as an inventor, it's a different perspective. When they went to do the title of the book, Caregivers and Survival Guide, they couldn't find an appropriate picture that had a man pushing a woman in a wheelchair because it's always the woman taking care of the man. But I learned so much from that. And, I became, and my wife and I were tight at the time. We were together 33 years total. So maybe 20 years not even 15, 17 years at the time she got sick. And so 30 years, I became like part woman. I had to be, I change tampons. I do everything. And it's like, but I took it on as a challenge. And I'm not the kind of guy that could have been a nurse or a doctor. I don't really like medical stuff, but it's like, okay, suck it up. This is what I got to do. Get good at it, become efficient at it, live, put some humor into it. So it's survivable, incorporate the kids into it. And it's just another challenge. And you just got to take everything as a challenge. But again, back to what I think is different about me is I'm self-motivated, self-disciplined. And to do all that stuff, most people.
So is there a routine? Is there a to keep that going, to keep that self-discipline, to keep that self-motivation? Is there a routine? Are there practices? Are there certain things that you incorporate into your daily life that
absolutely
keep you kind of on the straight and narrow? Can
absolutely.
you share some of those?
My father was a big. It's funny you bring that up because my father was a big proponent of the word routine. You got to have a routine, and I have so many routines.
The fourth R.
That's the fourth R, the coveted. Yes, and it's true. And the fifth R though is rigor. And I was telling my niece and nephews this. I go, you got to have rigor, and they're going, what are you talking about? I go, you'll see. It's kind of the same thing. Rigor and routine. And I mean, the way I eat, the way I exercise, I mean, it's all, everything I do is free form around getting the routine done first. So I make my I make my protein drinks. I do my big protein shake. I'm a freak. I make it's Indian 6-bean Indian curry in the crock pot, and I eat it all week. I'm like a dog. I eat the same thing most of the time. I'm a real health freak on that. Then my son convinced me to pull a sled backward to strengthen my legs in the backyard. And I don't buy shit that I can't make. So I took a boogie board and taped 80 pounds of weights to it and took a rope to it. I drag that thing backwards every morning. I do 20 push-ups. I do 20 squats. I do 5 minutes of cycling on the hardest level. And then I do backwards, forwards, and I do some curls. But that's just the baseline. Then I do the 2-mile paddle at lunch. But if I surf, real surf, I don't do any of that. I just surf because that takes all the energy. But that is also, and just the way I start my day, I check emails, see who's looking for me. But I do all that stuff as a baseline because that baseline frees me up for the white slate of being free to either enjoy my own hours or to work on problems, knowing that I got the baseline done, the routine is done. And then in the old days, the routine was get the kids ready, get the wife ready, take her to the bathroom. It was massively complicated. Now it's much, much simpler. I have a dog, you may have heard. So I have dog routines too. So there's all these layers of routines. And the truth is I'm aspiring to become the ultimate selfish person one day where all the routines are just for me. Right now, I'm down to just a dog. I have kids, and I got a grandkid now, which is cool. But that's just after you're done playing with her, you can hand her back. And the dog, this is going to be my last dog. I love dogs, but it's a lot of work. And you can't leave town for a long time unless you know someone that can handle the dog. So it's like the routines have to lead to it's selfishness. People don't like to say they're selfish and full of themselves. I want to be one day. So they could really focus.
Yeah, and that's really admirable and I love you saying that because I do think it's a really important part of whatever you want to call it, self-actualization, being present, really enjoying life. And if so there is a need for it, of course, to do the routine and to have that discipline, but I can absolutely see that being such a wonderful journey that you're moving towards. We can talk for hours, but I do have a question.
Okay.
About travel. So you are so wonderful at being adaptable. You are teachable. You learn from everyone. How can travel and even just living in different places, how do we learn so much? How do we become more cultured, more aware, more understanding of who we are by traveling, right? Like, and I'm not saying going to a resort and not ever leaving the resort, exactly. Actually traveling.
Just to learn from other cultures, to see how people do things. And my parents infused that into us as little kids all across the country. And I've been all over the world, and it blows me away. And people also, and this is a weird thing, and I just had a discussion with a friend about this. I don't really want to travel to see what other humans have made necessarily. I want to meet other humans and see nature. That's just my own thing. So I go to Africa, India, Iceland. I want to see tigers, lions, volcanoes. That's what I want to do. But along the way, there you see and meet other people. The way they do things is differently. You get to meet them and just connect with them on a different level. I don't want to see, I've seen the churches in Italy and all these things, and it changed my life. I went to Italy as an exchange student in college. I lived in Florence for 6 months, and that blew my mind. That was the beginning of my real journey, because that made me really open my eyes to everything, because the whole Renaissance, and it's just, you got to take it in. But, you craft the travel to what you're interested in. So, and then when you get there, just explore all the nuances, but it's also as little as talking to the cab driver or the person at the shop and just watch how they do things. And you realize that a lot of the good ideas are really quite primitive. I really love more primitive cultures, primitive quotation, they're actually more advanced sometimes. But the way they solve problems is much more hands-on instead of just throwing chemicals or money at something. They solve it, organically. So I think travel's critical, and I wish the Concorde was back, and I wish I had a lot of money so I could fly, because I live, unfortunately or fortunately, but ironically, in the most isolated landmass in the world. Hawaii's 5 or 6 hours away from anything. So I've been taking these mega trips for the 40 years I've been here. I'm burnt out, and I'm a big guy. I'm in the back of the bus. I'm tight in that coach seat. And, the few times I used to get an upgrade to first class was great. Then I realized, no, this is horrible, because my next flight was worst when you go from first class back to coach.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm never going up there again unless I'm going up for good. And I'm not going up for good.
Yeah, I actually have Florence. Actually, I have a soft, place for Florence too, because back in school, I took some art history classes and kind of got exposed to it's such the art there, and it was such a trendsetter, during the Renaissance, and beautiful. And having never been there, I'm definitely envious.
Oh yeah,
but I do also have this personal kind of thought, like, experiment project that I've been thinking about and working through. There are these places that Colorado, Costa Rica, Hawaii, there are these centers that and there's other places around the world, right? Bali and other places in Asia, all over. And there are nexuses. There are places where a lot of like-minded people kind of gravitate towards. So in your travels and maybe meeting people on the islands, what is that common energy maybe that you've kind of thought yourself, and is there something that they all have in common, that
I think
there's something there that's maybe unexplainable, but you can kind of feel it? Or have you thought about that?
I think it's really nature. I think it's people living close to nature. That's always the common theme. All those places you mentioned, I've been to almost all of those, or all of them. You go to Indo or Bali, it's all art, and they're observing and living in nature. And ironically, we think us Western people are so advanced, but we get further away from nature. And we get in the phones and social media, you get further away from things that matter, natural beauty and natural people in the setting of natural beauty, solving natural problems. So like the Polynesians, I say, I'm an inventor. I'm not Polynesian at all. I live in a Polynesian island, but they have all these incredible inventions, how they navigated by the stars, how they built canoes, sailing, paddling, all this stuff. They were true inventors and true artists, and it was all interacting and living with nature. I mean, that really, and it's hard to turn the clock back on all these humans that don't live near nature, but just to be close to that, I think that is the common thing, is nature and art and creativity. That's it. And of course, science to me is an overarching thing that covers all that, and be fed by that. And that's how it's fed me, which was get the technical degrees and then be creative. Because usually, and that's where that's one of my good things in life, is that I'm like a translator. I could talk to scientists and artists and bikers and surfers and heroin addicts. I could talk to these people and make complex themes understandable and interesting. And that's hard to do. And we need more people to be able to do that. And that's one of the things I pride myself on.
That's huge. I really love that message. Being somebody that has, quit their day job and, maybe done a couple things, responsibly running away, sort of a thing. It is a great message for the creatives and the artists, the creatives, the seekers, the seers. If you have that degree, you can always fall back on it, and you are learning a lot. But, don't quit your day job. That being said, some of these travels, what would you do for that person that really wants to go on that trip? Like, do you have a vision board? Do you save like a little nest of money on the side?
Well,
how can someone plan a trip?
Right. I mean, just keep visualizing it and saving money. You got to save the money and set up the time. It's all back to the blank slate for me. And even when I go for a surf or a paddle or a trip, they're not half as enjoyable if you still have a bunch of stuff on your mind in your inbox. I want to clear it. So for those people that want to go to Bali and do art or do some trip somewhere, save the money, clear up your time, achieve it. You got to earn it. That's the other thing that really frustrates me in life is people that don't earn it on any level. So you have to earn. You got to earn that trip. You got to earn the right to go, not just the money, but the time and place in your life of where you are. So you're able to go with an open mind and experience it fully and enjoy it fully. And, the hardest thing of that is coming back. And that's why ideally in your regular life, you have to build things that you enjoy. So your regular life is bearable, fun, enjoyable, and challenging. But
there's that reverse culture shock is a real thing. When you go away and you come back, it's like, all right, you want to have your ducks in a row.
Exactly.
Well, Dr. Rob, I could talk to you all day long, and we'll do it again for sure. But thank you. These have been such wonderful practical tips. You're so inspirational.
Thank you.
You have it. You got the right brain, you got the left brain. You're putting them together, and we're so glad to reap the rewards.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very kind.
Yeah, absolutely. I concur. Anything? One thing we like to do is leave our listeners with like a little bit of guidance from the experts. So we have someone that's listening. Maybe even let's do this. You got a kid that you see. That's doing science and trying to enter something in the science fair. What advice maybe to have got that you got, that get you started at such a young age, would you give someone that's trying to be creative, be an inventor? They just found out about Edison or Tesla or something like that.
Right.
What advice would you give them to just to get started?
I think ultimately you have to do something you're interested in because you have to have passion. So if they're getting started in a field they think might be lucrative, but they don't love it, I would say go to something you love because then you half the battle's done. And also don't be afraid to fail a bunch of times. I know it's become corny at this point, and because everyone says it, because it's true. And especially to younger people, you have to be okay with failing. And and as a corollary to that is don't let your parents do your work, fail on your own. Don't ask your parents what science project they want to do and can they help you. I'm very anti-parents helping their kids do work. And I know I don't want to insult anyone because I'm sure most of the parents do it, but I'm like, and for me, it was easy. My kids were little kids and I was buried in work. So it was easy for me for that message. I go, can you help me with my son? You say, you're a scientist. Can you help me with your science project? I go, no. I go, I'll debate science with you. That's your work. I did my work. And you respect your teacher and your bosses. That's your thing. I love discussing it with you, but I'm not doing it for you. You can brainstorm with me. Same thing with kids. You don't let someone else do the work for you because they'll do what they want to do or what they're interested in or what they're comfortable with. So, and be creative and be out there because even if your project isn't great, if you're out there and creative, at least you're out there and creative. I mean, that's an achievement in itself. It's not a mundane thing that everyone else is doing. Be different, but have the credibility to fall back on. You're still a good student or you're still a good worker. But just throw those wild ideas are the best ones. And the other thing is the best inventions, a lot of them come from a childlike mind. I mean, the guy I used to work with, one of my big motivators from the early days, he invented the smoke in the cockpit technology. If there's smoke in a plane, it inflates an airbag and it lets you see through the windshield, through the smoke to the windshield. That idea a 5-year-old could have thought of. When you blow up a balloon and you hold it to your face, you can see through it. It's brilliant. It's and the streamers know that thing is just stupid simple. I mean, I used to tell people, my invention, I want to be known as the KISS guy, keep it simple, stupid. And when people say that to me, I go, they like say, oh, I don't want to insult you, but that's such a simple idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. That is so again, to your question, go to the simpler solution first, right? Go to the simpler before you, and also don't do all the bugs and whistles. People, even like a show, podcast, whatever you do the basic thing first. And the streamer, one of the reasons I succeeded was the first one I built. I didn't put lights and reflectives and make it auto deploy, all the things that it ultimately became. It was just a piece of orange plastic with struts in it so it didn't twist. Simple. And I knew that if I started to put too many things on it, it might get too expensive, too complicated, too many things for people to have issue with. So keep it simple, stupid. That's a good thing.
Wise words from Dr. Rob Yonover. We've been listening to today. Before we end things, can you tell us where people can connect with you online, and also find the Sea Rescue Streamer and the books that you've written?
Sure. SeaRescueStreamer.com. It's on Amazon. Just put Sea Rescue Streamer. On Facebook, I do write some stuff and post stuff. I just put out kind of like my 5th book unpublished, my stories of me and my buddies. It's on Facebook, where Rob Yonover, and Rob Yonover Instagram. Either one. You can read these crazy stories of my crazy existence as a kid. Because no one wanted to publish it, I'm saying, okay, screw it. I'm putting it out anyway. But my other books, Hardcore Inventing, Caregiver Survival Guide, Brainstorm Island is a children's book, and Hardcore Health, all on Amazon. Just go to my name, Rob Yonover. You'll see all this stuff. And, it's not a heavy sales pitch. I just, that's where my stuff is. If you're into it, fine. It's no big deal. But and Shark Tank, you can go to Hulu and go to season 8, episode 22, if you want to see me wink at Mark Cuban.
That's a great way. Well, Kiss. You ended with Kiss and then the wink. Thank you so much, Dr. Rob. It's been a pleasure. We'll definitely have to do this again. We learned a lot today, and our audience is going to be in for a treat.
Brian, I stopped it. The recording.